Hello, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI, and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast with my dear friend who's joined me for many, many years. Now, for many years, we called him the editor and publisher of the Spun.com, the best sports aggregate site on the web for where sports meets pop culture, the best aggregating of that. But now, new title, new job, and I'm happy for him. He is now one of the gurus, the guns at Men's Journal. Great job for you, Matt. Congratulations. It's great to have you back on the show. It's Sunday. It's not Sunday without Hull Attic, so it's good to have you, brother.
Appreciate it. And yeah, the new gig is going well so far. So, knock on wood, hopefully it keeps up.
So, do they find you at mensjournal.com?
You can find my stuff at mensjournal.com. Now, I will say that it's not as much just pure sports related content as it used to be, but you can find me at mensjournal.com, and you can still find me on X, as we'll talk about at the end of the segment. And I'm always talking ball on there too. I know a lot of Raider fans have jumped on with me there.
Matt, you know this because you've known me for close to 2 decades. I have always been, and it got me a lot of grief because I'm a Spartan. I have always been a big proponent of Tom Brady. I like Tom. I respect him. I think he's a man of great integrity. And I think he's painting himself into a spot here that he needs to be careful. And I want to make this point clear. I'm not calling him out. I don't think he's disingenuous, and I don't think he's a man lacking of character. But he is certainly concerned about image and projection, which is fine. I don't have all of us should be concerned about, not fearful of it. And I'm not saying he is, but concerned about it. Now, Mark Davis said that, hey, he's going to help us find our quarterback. Okay. And John Spytek said, when we're looking for a quarterback, we'd have to be fools not to involve Tom. And then Pete Carroll said, it's our mission to build this football team up around the quarterback position. We happen to have the greatest of all time to help us and to see clearly we're going to lean on Tom as much as we possibly can for his insight because nobody has the insight that he has. He's that unique. Now, Skip Bayless, who I'm not a fan of, comes out and says essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, this is not a quote, but hey, the Raiders skipped on Shador 7 times or whatever, however many times he said, and that was Tom Brady. Now, when I was asked about it, here's exactly what my statement was. I said, did he 5, 6, 7 times say no, 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 no? But I 100% believe he was involved in setting up how they valued the quarterback board. And clearly, when they picked and Shador was available, they had other priorities higher than him. So, could you technically say he said no? Technically, you could, but it's how the draft board falls out. Now, here's the whole issue. Tom Brady took exception with how Bayless said it. I don't like the way Bayless said it. In fact, I like very little of what Bayless says or how he says it. But to when the organization has made it clear when we're looking at quarterbacks, Tom Brady's our true north, the guy we're going to talk to, and all of that. If they're all wrong and Tom didn't talk to anybody, then he needs to come out and say, hey, I realize everyone made this comment. I said nothing. Because he's an owner now. He's not a player. He's not just a TV personality. He's an owner now. And the key cogs in this wheel, including his boss, Mark Davis, has said, we're going to lean on him. He's going to help. All of that. I have been told that, Tom wasn't in the room making the picks. That's true. But certainly that I was told to believe that Tom had no influence in establishing value would be foolish. I just don't understand why he's picking battles here that to me seem more about image than anything else. You help me. You direct me. Where am I wrong here?
Well, I think part of it is it's a fine line for him because he does have that past relationship with Shador Sanders personally and the Sanders family and Dion. And I also think it was unfair to make it for Skip Bayless to basically make it sound like Tom Brady was the reason why the Raiders passed. Like if Tom Brady, now listen, you would know it's better than me. If Tom Brady really stood on his head and stood on a pound of the table for Shador Sanders, is it possible the Raiders might have taken him? Maybe. But is Tom
Let me
Brady
just
going to
stop
do?
you right. Can I just respectfully stop you right there for a moment?
Yeah.
If Tom Brady had beat the table, and I've already said this and said he's the best quarterback, he's a franchise quarterback, he's the best player in this draft, the Raiders would have picked him. I 100% believe that. Do
Right.
I believe that Tom Brady had an agenda against Shador? Not at all.
No,
Okay, I'm sorry.
I
Keep
don't
going.
think so either. I think that, when you look at how the draft is set up, teams are going in. The Raiders are going in with a clear starting quarterback in mind for 2025, and it's Geno Smith. He has the experience under Pete Carroll. The Raiders would not have traded a third-round pick for him and then signed him to an extension if they did not envision him as the starter at the very least for 2025 and possibly beyond. So then you have to go into it with that. Now they have a young, cheap backup with experience in Aiden O'Connell, but you can always make a move on from that. You can if there's a better option that presents itself, but you have to think, okay, first round, we're not taking Shador at 6 because either they didn't think he was a franchise guy or some combination of that and the fact they already have a starter. So they took the best player available in Ashton Genty. So now you get into the second and third round and you say, all right, is it better for us to take a guy who is starting the year as a backup at best or to go for a different need? Now you take a look at the Giants with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's on a 1-year deal. They moved back up into the first round to take Jackson Dart, who they're not planning on starting right away, but I think is going to play during his rookie year because I think if the Giants lose games, the coaching staff is going to need to show some type of proof of concept with their quarterback of the future to stay and the regime itself to stay in business. The Raiders don't need to worry about that. They don't need to have a rookie quarterback play well to keep Pete Carroll and John Spytek and all these people around. So they didn't need to say, we got to get a guy this year in this class because our jobs depend on it. So I think when you take all that into consideration, I just think that it was – did Tom Brady pound the table for Shador? No, I think it's pretty safe to say he didn't. But did he torpedo any chances of, the Raiders getting Shador? I think that's unfair too. And I think that the way Skip Bayless kind of phrased it made it seem like, Tom Brady was the driving force for the Raiders not taking Shador, which I don't think is the case. And I think that's unfair.
No, and again, very little of what Skip Bayless says do I find myself in complete collaboration with. But at the same time, Tom's going to have to just understand. I know he tries to avoid all controversies. That's just you're in the owner's box.
It's impossible at this point. He can't do it at this point. He can't do it at this point.
There's no getting out of it now. All right, next. And we are not a political show, never going to be, but sometimes they interact. President Trump is going to name Nick Saban to his head of his commission to help fix college sports. I know it isn't an NFL thing, but man, I love this. Nick having that ability, I think, is going to be a big deal. I'd love your thoughts.
I'm always skeptical of any type of solution or any type of thing that anybody's throwing out there with NIL because it's just been dragging on forever with stuff in Congress and the House and now Trump's getting involved. And I don't have any faith that and this is not a knock on Trump or any particular politician. I don't have any faith that anything's going to get done in terms of regulating NIL.
I don't either.
I just don't think, but I do think that in order, you could do worse than have Nick Saban have his input there because I know a lot of people have always suggested if college football were to have a commissioner, Nick Saban would be the perfect hire. And I do think that he brings a unique perspective because he coached at Alabama when he was the best coach in college football and they were the top program, and NIL kind of came into the fold. So he knows what it's like to coach at a big time program with a lot of NIL resources, but he still also knows some of the drawbacks of it and some of the issues you have to navigate that coaches may want to see rectified. My main thing, just to go off quickly, is that I don't see NIL ever becoming uniform, is because I just don't think that every coach and administrator and programs priorities are on the same page. Because here's the thing: do I think all coaches would tell you probably, listen, the transfer portal can be a pain. In basketball, you're seeing almost whole rosters go in and out, and teams are changing over the course of a year. Football, you're seeing a lot of roster changeover. Do I think coaches love navigating it? No. But if you're the coach of a program with a lot of NIL resources, why would you want that regulated or to leveling the playing field? You can transform your program year to year. If you go 7-5 and you have a lot of NIL or a lot of resources at your disposal, you could put together a roster that gets you to 10 wins, 11 wins potentially, and into the college football playoff. Ohio State, they were able to keep their entire roster together after 2023, and then supplement it with guys, and they win the national championship. So I think that with not every program and coaches and administrators priorities lined up, it's kind of tough to get a uniform solution on that.
Yeah, I'm my answer to everything is not the government getting involved.
Right, I agree with that in this case for sure, 100%.
Yeah, to me, I just think we have other problems in America than fixing NIL. I mean, I'm all for, but I would like to see all of the college football, at least the Big Ten and SEC, come together and say, let's put Nick in charge of fixing it. And yeah, I agree with that 100%. All right, I want to talk about Bill Belichick. We alluded to it last week. He was on CBS in the morning. I finally got to watch the interview in its totality. I thought it was now Bill always has unique interviews, and I thought it was a terrible look for Belichick. I have some folks that I know well connected to North Carolina. They weren't happy with it. I just thought it was a bad look all around. I get that Bill still wants to coach. I think he should if somebody wants him. But this is just becoming extremely awkward to me. And as somebody that has been a long time Belichick guy, I don't like it. I'd love your thoughts on it.
It's an awkward situation, and it's strange to see because we're so used to Bill Belichick controlling the narrative at all times and being in control of the Patriots brand and his brand, and being like the government Secret Service, with in terms of letting out information, and now you're seeing him. We actually wrote about it this week at Men's Journal. A report came out saying that Jordan Hudson, his girlfriend's kind of taken over his brand, and they don't know if it's a good thing because she's young and she's kind of impulsive a little bit, or thinks she knows everything, and maybe it's not the best look. And I think that it's so striking because we're seeing Bill Belichick in a light and in a way that we've never seen him before. And it looks like he's not in control. And listen, you could get into the whole relationship and people talk about the age gap, and that's an entirely different conversation. But I think the main thing is he's not the guy necessarily running the show, it seems, or you're seeing him put his trust in, another person. And that's just beyond what we've seen from him. So I don't know. I mean, listen, as anything with football and with sports, the proof is in the pudding. Once the games start in September, all fans are going to care about for the most part is wins and losses. And if they win 8-9 games this first year at UNC and they're looking up, I think some of this will disappear by the wayside. But until then, it's going to be a major story. And if things don't go well on the field this fall, it's going to blow up even more.
Yeah, I'm concerned for him because I know he desperately wants. Okay, let me rephrase this. I have been told by people who I know him well, he desperately wants to get back and become the all-time winning coach.
I don't see that happening with this.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just not going to happen. And it's disappointing to me because I think for a guy that's given so much to the game, every interaction I've ever had with him, he's been extremely good and kind to me. I have nothing but respect for him. I just hate to see it end this way. Saquon Barkley came out and said something this week, and if I was a member of an evangelical choir, I would have jumped up and said, Hallelujah, Amen. When he said, Hey, I got a message for all you people that want to ban the tush push. Stop it. Just learn to stop it. Why do you? I've said this before. I don't understand people when they can't accomplish something. Let's legislate it. You know, we can't win at NAL. Let's legislate it. Whatever it may be. Oh, if I can't beat you, I'm going to go to the courts. I I hate, and I don't even know that that's a strong enough word. I beyond hate bureaucracy, and I agree with Saquon. We're going to obviously get some movement this week coming up at the owners' meetings, but I hate it too. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, listen, if you're playing against it, I hate playing against it. I understand if you're a fan watching it against the Eagles, you're annoyed by it. And it's not, it can be an annoying play, but I don't think it needs to be legislated out. I mean, it just, because
Right.
first of all, every team can do it. Every team runs some form of a quarterback sneak, or you've seen some teams kind of use like a little bit of a tush push. But the Eagles have perfected it because of the personnel they have. They had a Hall of Fame center with Jason Kelsey. Jalen Hurts is a big dude at quarterback, strong, squats 600 pounds or something. So he's got that leg strength, that drive. Now they don't have Kelsey, but they got Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson and all these guys in the interior line that can do the job just as well. So they perfected it, and I think that they found an advantage within the framework of the rules. They're not pushing the. They're not doing something that's illegal. And I think that banning it is silly. And I think that it's something that, I would agree, as somebody who's not an Eagles fan, I would agree with Saquon, agree with Nick Sirianni. I think that banning it is kind of, it's like taking your ball and going home if you're a kid at the playground.
It's like everybody gets a trophy. This is the stupidest thing in youth sports right now. I cannot tell you the number of coaches. I'll give you an example. I was on the phone last night with a very successful college football head coach. Okay. Very successful. And he said to me, he goes, it's beyond, he goes, because we were talking about NIL. And he goes, NIL isn't my biggest issue. And he goes, I can deal with NIL. We have the resources. He goes, my issue is I got kids now that have never been coached. He goes, I got kids now coming in, and because he's doing a lot through the portal and very little through recruiting now.
Mm-hmm.
And, or let's say not as much as he did before. He goes, I get some of these kids that have never been coached. And he told me a story about a kid last year that played a particular position. I'm not going to name the position. And the position coach said to him, What are you doing? And, he says, What are you doing? And he's telling him this particular football term, which if I say it, you're going to know what position he played. A term 90% of people who watch football know. And the kid says, well, I don't know what that means. And he's like, okay, my job to teach you. And he literally, the kid started crying because he was being told, you're not doing that right. And this is a big kid. And he just said to me, he goes, "We have raised a generation of kids who have never been coached, who have been given a trophy for everything they've done. Oh, you're great, Johnny. You're great, this." He said, "Hondo, that's going to destroy the game long before NIL." That's a pretty interesting statement, is it not?
It is, and I think when you see a lot of times, I believe in the freedom of movement for players, but when you see guys who have transferred schools from year to year to year in search of a better opportunity or a better payday, it can make for a tough thing because you're wondering how much are they going to kind of sacrifice themselves for the betterment of the team, or how much are they committed to improving in that spot. So I think that also kind of ties into that point that your guy made.
John Gruden has probably a ruling coming before the end of the month um, about his suit against the NFL that I have said all along. If this is able to get to discovery, it is going to be a bombshell on the NFL. John is a guy that is not broke. And unlike a lot of people who go into litigation, he's not looking for money. Uh, if it were my opinion, I think he wants flesh. I'm not saying he wants to do physical damage to anyone, but I mean, I think that's his thing.
No, for sure. I know what you mean.
Um, I think there is a lot of attention on this quietly. This is going to be a very seminal moment for the NFL sometime, I think, before the end of the month with this court case. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, and we've said this before, anytime the NFL, you see them settle for something, a lot of times, and it's not just the NFL that does this, but anytime you see a major organization or you see parties, even individual parties, settle when they don't want things to go to discovery, it's because there's something there that they don't want out, or things there that they don't want out. Um, you look at going back a few years, the collusion lawsuit with Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reed. Whether you agree with Colin Kaepernick or not, the NFL settled that because they didn't want things getting out in discovery. They didn't want, certain things to be out in the forefront. Same thing with John Gruden. Whether you like John Gruden, don't like John Gruden, you like the NFL, don't like the NFL, it has to do with the fact that they don't want certain things out, and they know John Gruden saying, okay, you got things that I said in email or did, and it paints me in a bad light, but I have this, and this, and this that can make you guys look bad. So it'll be interesting to see how it finally plays out and if it all gets settled.
George Pickens gets traded to the Cowboys, which the Cowboys are just one bad decision after another. I cannot believe this. I can, because it's the Cowboys. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I said right after the news broke on Twitter, I said it has explosive potential either way. Either he is the wide receiver 2 that they've been lacking and they didn't have on their roster opposite CeeDee Lamb, and he plays very well, and it looks like a brilliant deal, or it's explosive in a sense that he blows up and they can't kind of keep him centered and focused, and it becomes an untenable situation. And I think that's the risk that Dallas took, but that's the risk they got themselves in because they were in a spot where they were desperate. They did not have a second wide receiver. They didn't draft one. And they had to go make a splash, which Jerry Jones loves to do. And this certainly, was a way to make a splash. And, if it works out, it could be a big boon to them. But if not, it's going to blow up in their face. I don't think there's any middle ground. I think it's either going to be a massive hit or a big miss.
100% agree. All right, last question from you. I mean, from me for you today, but I think it's a good one. The NFL, to me, the numbers, everything continues to go. We hit this a lot because I think it's important. It is the biggest of all the professional sports leagues anywhere in the world. Nothing's bigger. I know others have bigger audiences talking about soccer internationally, but it doesn't have the revenue. My thing to you is I still believe the only thing that kills the NFL is the NFL. True or false?
For sure. I think that there's no sport that overtakes it at this point. The other ones are either, baseball is not the national pastime anymore. Hockey and basketball are two, they have niche, their fan bases are more niche than football. Football is still king. It's the behemoth. So I think that it would take a lot to knock it off its perch, and it would have to almost be a lot of self-sabotage, so to speak.
So I was talking to a national television executive that works for a national sports network, a very high ranking guy this past week. And we were talking about how big the NFL is. And he made a comment to me to keep an eye on the rise of UFC. He said to me, I firmly believe, and he didn't get into any details, but he insinuated that we may see something. But he said UFC is clearly, he thinks, is going to get bigger than hockey and NBA. Do you believe that?
I don't think so. It's obviously grown a lot and it's become a lot more popular. But I don't. You're talking about then it becoming like the third most popular sport in the country behind NFL and baseball, and I don't see that happening. I just don't think it will
I
get to that
I
big
didn't either.
level,
I I,
mainstream level.
I yeah, I didn't either. But when this guy said it, it certainly got my attention. Certainly got my attention. All right, my friend. That's Matt Hladek from Men's Journal. Matt, tell them where to find you.
Yeah, you can find me at Matt Hladek, MattHladik 919 on X or Twitter, and I'm always over there talking about some ball. And come find me on Men's Journal to read about everything else.
Awesome. Great to have you, Matt.